Yo, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be swapping out the oil pump in this here $1,000 Cherokee. We got a brand new oil pump, gasket, and a new pickup tube. We just got this thing running in the last video after putting on a brand new clear water cylinder head because it had coolant in the oil from the cracked, well, supposedly cracked 331 head that came factory on this 2000 Cherokee. At the end of the last video, I was a little bit worried because we fired it up, ran it for about 15 minutes after the new head, drained the oil, and it was still kind of a milkshake. And I kind of ended the video on that, but since then I did 3 oil changes with Seafoam. It slowly got better, started to clear up, and the oil looks normal now. So as I suspected, I think it was just leftover coolant still in the system, but after the Jeep warms up, everything gets up to temperature, the oil pressure will start to drop quickly and eventually get to zero once it's warm. So that's why today we're swapping the oil pump. I already got a bunch of stuff off. I'll show you. Let's check it out. Getting the oil pan off of a stock ride height XJ is interesting. I started by jacking it up and getting jack stands on the frame, letting the axle droop as much as possible. Took off the starter. The exhaust needs to come out too to get to the pan bolts, and I found it easier. Let me tell you, I got pretty good at taking all this crap off of the intake manifold and all that, doing the head. So I thought that would be easier than trying to fish up and get all these 4 bolts off, and who knows how hard they would have been to take off. So that's the route I went with. When it was time to actually get the oil pan out, got all the bolts out, and then when I went to drop the pan, the pickup tube was catching and the bell housing wasn't letting the pan come out. So on the drag link here, I took off the pitman arm end, let that drop. And then on the track bar, I took the mounting bolt off the axle, along with the 2 top shock bolts up in the engine bay. And it allowed the axle to drop enough to pull the pan out. And that's where we're at now. And there's almost no coolant residue left. So I think that Seafoam did a good job, along with the 3 oil changes, of getting this engine cleaned up. On the oil pan, there's just a little bit of a puddle of milkshake there and maybe some here, but that's about it. So we got to get the pan cleaned up. Under here with the old oil pump, 2 13mm bolts holding this guy in. Pretty simple. The pickup tube will just come out with it. We can assemble the new one on the bench. Now the goal at the end of this video will be to start it again, get it back up to temperature, and see if it still holds oil pressure. All right, got that other bolt out. There it comes. I think the gasket went with the pump. Some residue there. We'll have to get that cleaned up. Let's check out this old oil pump up on the bench. One of the mounting bolts goes here, and then the other one is shared with the pickup tube. Let's have a look inside of this pickup tube. Oh, there's a bunch of crap in there just sludged up. But one thing I did notice is the oil drive feels very notchy, and there's a lot of resistance. That might even be audible, how clicky it is compared to the new one that's silky smooth. I'm feeling better already. Before I put in the new oil pump, I'm actually going to clean the whole mating surface for the oil pan gasket as well. So I'll probably use a scraping tool and some degreaser and some rags, get this cleaned up pretty good. Then we'll have to deal with cleaning that oil pan. All right, got her cleaned up. Like I said, purple power and rags and a scraper. Got the job done. Looks good. One thing I forgot, I probably should have looked at the orientation of the drive for the oil pump. I'm gonna see if I can stick my eyeball up there and see which way the key is going and try and line up the oil pump on the first try. Right about there-ish, maybe. Now we need to get this pickup tube on, so I'm gonna throw this oil pump in the vise carefully. Pickup tube goes in here, and then this tab needs to line up with that bolt hole. And then we just have to find a way to kind of get her pressed in there. See if I can kind of get it started. Maybe. Grab Chanel here. Man, that's a tight fit. These are both melling parts, so. Is that working? I think that's working. Good job, Chanel. I feel like I should put something around there. Maybe some tape. I think we're there. Nice. Put this gasket on and we'll install it. See if it pops right into place. There we go. Oh, I should have had a bolt ready. Come on. Bolt. Snug them down quick. Torquing these to 18 foot-pounds. Now we're going to try and clean up this oil pan best we can. Maybe spray some brake clean, get most of this drained. And we'll probably come around with some more purple power, agitate it, scrub it, and see how it looks. Look at all that junk coming out of there. Blah. Don't be shy with the degreaser. All right, we'll let that soak for a minute. And this time, we'll agitate it with the brush. Not bad, not bad. I'm gonna keep working at this. And I'll show you when it's done. All right, got it pretty clean, good and dry, all that. Now we're ready to throw that thing in here. Let me show you. I bought a one-piece rubber gasket right here. It's well worth it to get the Felpro gasket because you get these little things. These thread into the 4 corner bolt holes, the bigger ones, and then you can actually snap your gasket right to it. And it holds it up in place, and it'll also hold the pan too. You can snap your pan up there, get a couple bolts started. But even though it's a rubber one-piece gasket, we're still gonna head underneath and put some RTV in a couple different spots. So we're at the front of the motor here, and where the timing cover meets the block, there's a seam on either side. And we're just gonna put a small bead of RTV there. Do the same exact thing on this side. Then at the back of the block here, where the last bearing cap meets the block, we're just gonna put a little blob right there. Boop. And same on the other side. Something like that. Now we'll get those little thingies snapped in the corners and we'll set the gasket up into place. And 2. There we go. Let's see if I can do all 4 at the same time. Like that. All right, let's run some bolts. Got every other bolt started except for our 1/2-inch corner bolts. And another cool thing about these clip things is they have a little screwdriver attachment on the bottom. All the hardware is now installed. We'll torque them down. I reckon I'm just gonna do like you would a cylinder head and just start and do a spiral. The smaller ones get 7 foot-pounds and the 4 corner ones get 11 foot-pounds, but this old torque wrench I have only goes to 10, so that's what they're gonna get. Finally got everything torqued. Man, that took forever, but last thing to do for that kind of stuff is put all these brackets back on, O2 sensor, trans cooler lines, and then we'll start reassembling, starter, and all that. Got the starter in and the inspection plate along with the drain bolt. Can't forget that. Now I'm gonna quickly assemble the top, get everything back together, then we'll be able to prime the engine and fire this thing up and see if the oil pump was indeed our issue. That's all back together and there's no extra parts left over, which is good. We're ready to fire this thing up. First, we need to prime the oiling system. We're gonna come under the fuse panel here. Right here's your ASD relay. That's gonna cut fuel and ignition so we can turn the motor over and build oil pressure without it firing. Holy crap, I'm glad that happened. I pulled the relay out and it fell down and I looked at the oil filter and whoo, we didn't add oil. We should probably do that. All right, we won't talk about what just happened. All right, let's go prime this motor, get some oil pressure. And there's some oil pressure. All right, here we go. Oil pressure hasn't dropped below 20 yet. All right, it seems to idle. Oh, maybe. But the oil pressure doesn't want to keep up. All right, let's go see what mine does comparatively. See, I have over 40 pounds at idle, and it's pretty much up to temp. See, it's weird, now that it's warmed up again, even at 2,000 RPM, it only has 20 PSI. And if I take it down to 1,000, right there, it falls through the floor. Dang it. So before we go into full panic mode and start accusing the cam bearings of things they may or may not have done, I pulled the oil pressure thingy and I hooked up a manual gauge. So we'll see what that does. I have to baby the throttle still, so I want to be able to see this. So this will say 0. Yeah, 3 PSI at idle. Well, now that we got the readings from the manual gauge, that pretty much confirms the worst. I guess this motor was just ran too long with coolant in the oil, and it's likely that our cam bearings are wiped, or maybe the main bearings. But we did fix the coolant issue. There's no coolant in the oil anymore, but the damage is done. Some people will argue that changing to different filter types or different oil will help, but that's more of a band-aid. And this was 10W30 Rotella that we had, and I already did 3 oil changes before in the last video with the 1540 Rotella, so pretty much confirms the worst. But I do need to get this thing out of the shop if we're gonna have the C10 done by springtime. We need to start working on that ASAP. So this will probably maybe be done in the shop for the winter. We'll bring it back in the spring. I don't know yet. Maybe we'll try and throw a motor in it quick. But that's gonna wrap it up for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.